前看齐，墙上写着秦香莲的32岁。
Hey, hello guys, how are you?
Hey, how are you?
Fine, and you?
Fine, thank you.
Oh, I like your shoe.
Well, thank you.
Where'd you get them?
Well, I get them in the US in Aldo, you know that store?
Really?
Yes.
Oh, they look so nice.
Yeah, thank you. So you guys ready for National Treaty Exam?
Yeah.
Okay. But it's actually weird because I just saw yesterday I'm from China.
Made in China?
Yes, I'm in China.
Really?
Yeah.
They don't look very Chinese.
Yes, I know. But it's different because I was saying that instead China is has this history of having bad quality. But then I saw it has a lot of history since it has new relationships with other countries. So let me explain.
Okay.
So after I noticed my shoes were made on China, I was just wondering, I didn't know anything about his history, so I decided to investigate it somehow. And what I found was that China's history was divided in three periods, well, three main periods. The first one was called the Imperial period, in which there were different emperors and there were a lot of dynasties, or emperors, and it lasted about 2 millennia. There were a lot of attacks from foreigners, and there was this feeling of mistrust in them, so they built what we all know as the Great Wall of China. After that, we have the period of foreign humiliation, which lasted from the 19th to the 20th centuries. During this period, there were two wars, which were called the Opium Wars. And there was these Europeans and China. The Europeans wanted to have more market and wanted these goods from China, which were silk and porcelain. And that's why Great Britain introduced from their colonies in India what is called opium. And a war started. At the end, Great Britain won, and it obtained to open the ports of China, especially Hong Kong. That's why it was called humiliation, since the Chinese felt very bad about it. And at the end, we have the third period, which is the first decades of communism, which lasted from 1949 until the reform of 1978. During this period, Mao Zedong was the leader, and he established a protectionist reform in order to protect it from foreign investments. And after that, after his death, its successor, in 1978, he decided to make a new reform in order to open China's to the open market.
The relations that China has made with other countries, important to know its history, you know, about the imperialism period, then comes humiliation, which...
Hello.
Hey, hello, how are you?
Hey, how are you?
Thank you.
So
What are you doing?
I was just talking with Anais about the history of China. It came to mind because these new shoes I have, they're made from China, so they have very good quality, you know. But
Yeah, they look really, really good. You know, actually I was doing some research for a paper I have to do about the free trade agreements that China has. Do you want me guys to explain you?
Sure,
Yeah, sure.
pretty great.
Okay,
Thank
perfect.
You must change the vibe. Trust me with your drugs, it will be just fine. Never see yourself just the way you are. Come back and cry for me, cause you
So China has 10 free trade agreements and 2 agreements to establish a more economic partnership. With Asian, there are 10 countries and also China that have a free trade zone. There is about 60 million people in that area, so it represents a really big market. With Singapore, the Singapore companies invest a lot in China, and China in exchange exports clothing, textiles, fruit and vegetables. Taiwan and China were in dispute and mistrust for about 60 years. So after they were good again, they negotiate this free trade agreement and sign it. With Chile, they had really good economic relationships, but when Pinochet was the dictator of Chile, they were cooled down. Then they started to renegotiate this agreement when Pinochet was down for the government. With Costa Rica and Peru, they had a really interesting way to start the negotiations for the agreement, because they worked in a joint working group to evaluate the feasibility of the treaties. After they conclude that they were going to beneficiate both countries, they signed it. With New Zealand, they had a lot of controversy because a company of that country started to tell people that the interest of Chinese products was going to affect their economy because of the low prices they had. But a poll with the population of New Zealand showed that a lot of people were good with this treaty. Also with Pakistan, they have only 2 clauses that are for goods and services, so there is no investment between the countries. And with Switzerland, it was the second European country to sign a free trade agreement with China. Iceland was the first developed European country to sign it, and finally, Hong Kong and Macau have this agreement to establish the economic partnership that only encourages people to trade between these countries.
I didn't know that China had a lot of treaties.
Yes, and all of them have brought several benefits for China. Its exports have increased a lot, and it is opening to a new market that is Europe. Because, for example, Ireland is the first treaty that signed with an European country.
Oh, wow. You know, it's very interesting because I read that China is using this strategy about the Trojan horse, where it goes to regions where the US cannot go. And then, for example, when you mentioned in Europe, it bought the port of Athens because Greece, you know, was up with a lot of debt. So when Greece asked for China for a loan, they gave it to them instead of the port of Athens. So they're really making a really good impression in the international stage. So let's see where it goes.
金钱看齐，墙上写着秦香莲的32岁了，装个当朝，驸马郎的旗帜王啊，满皇上的徽2岁了，装个当朝。金钱看齐，墙上写着秦香莲的32岁了，装个当朝，驸马郎的旗帜王啊，满皇上的徽2岁了，装个当朝。
If you feel my love, can you hear my thoughts? Can you feel everything? And if you hear my thoughts, can you feel my soul? Can you see the truth? Not the one that I need to stay high on my feet. Don't need you to succeed.